Hi everyone, this is Sinette, and in this video we're continuing with the weight of our emotions. Now, an exercise that I would like everyone to give a go is for a couple days, have a look at if you can recognize the subtle moments where you go into emotional reactions, and at the end of the day to note them down for yourself, write them down. Because if I ask you right now to name the dominant emotions that you deal with or are aware of in your everyday life, you may mention a handful or just a couple or maybe even just one. But with this exercise, you'll actually start noticing and realizing that you're participating in more emotions than you were consciously aware of, because we so seldom actually acknowledge meaning really really be aware of, slow down, look into the subtle, very slight moments of emotional reactions. Like, for example, just today I had a moment where I so fleetingly misinterpreted another person's behavior. And I mean, it was really the interpretation moved inside my mind as a thought in a flash. And it was so quick, and I could also slightly feel there was a fear, an insecurity coming up inside of me. And it was a moment, but then I got distracted and busy with something else. And I actually had to, take a breath and stop myself and go, hey girl, you just missed a moment there. And if I didn't do that, I would have missed an opportunity to look into where the fear and insecurity was coming from in my relationship to a behavior, because that subtle movement that I misinterpreted, had been something of a projection towards another person, and actually exposed not an insecurity so much in the relationship. It exposed an insecurity inside myself, which I presumed I had already worked with and worked through. But, here it was coming up and showing again in a very subtle, fleeting moment. And upon investigation and introspection, understanding, I realized, goodness, this response of insecurity and fear because of a misinterpreted behavior of someone else was because of a memory of a similar moment that happened, in a past relationship that had a certain play out, a certain, consequential play out, where things didn't work out well in the relationship. And so, kind of a fleeting, subtle split second of a moment, my mind imprinted that past relationship memory into this moment, and that caused me to react in insecurity and fear. But, was working through it and recognizing it and understanding it, I realized it was more just a momentary experience of a past memory that was coming up in me. But if I didn't catch that moment, I have seen what has happened in the past, where such fleeting, subtle moments of reaction can start snowballing over time. And then that can cause me to go into and create a subconscious insecurity within a relationship, and live in a form of fear because of certain behaviors and actions that I'm interpreting within my frame of reference or opinion, and catapult me into a state of fear of loss, when all the while I just created all of it in my mind. And the familiar pattern that I'm sure many can relate to, of where you've actually created a problem, an issue with something or someone in your mind, and eventually when you opened up about it, or had to break down for it to open up, and you started communicating about it, nothing of what you believed was happening was even real. So why it is important to be able to pinpoint these subtle, fleeting moments of reactions that we go into in our everyday lives is because it's these subtle, fleeting, split-second reactions within ourselves that kind of start accumulating energy in the background of our minds, ourselves, and within our body. And, it's interestingly enough that it weaves into yourself, your body, so slowly over time that you barely notice it. And then before you know it, you're actually so intricately kind of merged with this thinking pattern or way of thinking, way of reacting, way of experiencing yourself in relation to yourself or another, you completely believe that state that you are in, that which you're experiencing, to be real. And, over time, it becomes more and more intense, your reaction, your experience, your way of thinking. And that either leads to an emotional breakdown or it leads to physical consequence. I mean, for me, what I have realized throughout my life is a form of panic that I go into when I'm stressed. So I kind of short circuit the going through the stress process into panic, and I just immediately hit my panic button type of thing. But when I go into a panic, I tend to pace. My walking, my movements become faster. But now when I'm starting to pace, I already know, oh my goodness, I, over an extended period of time, had participated in small incremental moments of panic in my thoughts, in my way of looking at something. And that panic energy accumulated inside myself and inside my body over the weeks until eventually actually manifesting into a physical behavior such as pacing. So whenever I pace, I know I have to go back at least a couple of weeks to have a look at what on earth have I missed inside myself, in my thoughts, my projections, even planning, where I'd got into panic more than I'd realized. So, obviously here everyone is not to be hard on yourself with identifying or recognizing these type of things. Like for me, I would sometimes, with the example of the panic, I would think that, because I've worked with it for so long, that I'd be able to catch it in moments where it was subtle or fleeting, so that I don't have to walk through, it manifesting on a physical level and, impacting my behavior, the way I'm experiencing myself. But I mean, we've got to realize that, life moves, our everyday life moves fast. Even the information in our minds move fast, as well as in our energies. But you do, over time, the more and more you start practicing this way of life in your relationship with your mind, yourself, and your body, you become more and more aware. And what does lessen is you living out the consequence of your accumulated emotions, either through breakdowns or through behavioral patterns. All right, so for this video, everyone, I'd like you to have a look into diving into just becoming more aware of your everyday life and see how many emotions you can identify that you're subtly and fleetingly participating in, in the moments that you tend to miss. And just with me even, mentioning this to keep it into your awareness, you'll see it'll come more naturally in your everyday life. See also if you can define those energies for yourself, name them, what is the emotion that you went into, even take a step further into why you reacted, what memory, reference, data, information, misinterpretation, projection came up inside yourself when you noticed a particular emotional reaction. I mean, as with our emotions, that trigger inside of us, it will always have a purpose in you getting to know you a little better. in why and how you responded the way you did in moments. And I mean, as it was surprising for me too, in the moment of discovering that, the insecurity and fear I was feeling was more in relation to a memory or remembrance that popped up inside of me than having anything to do with the moment or the person who was in my life at that given moment. So there's a whole new world opening up here for everyone in what I'm walking with you, to learn more about your own mind and not just accept everything that's going on within you at face value. Like many would think that if they're in a fear or insecurity in that moment, that they are fearful or insecure in relation to someone, but that might not be the reason why you reacted at all. It might be because a memory triggered within you, or just because of a fleeting moment of misinterpretation. So I'm really looking forward to guiding as many as possible through this process and getting to know your mind, yourself, and your body, and the Trinity relationship between the three of them so much more. It will surely make a massive difference in your life, in your experience of yourself in everyday life moments. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll continue more in the next video.